I had to go and calm my little sulfur-winged cockatoo down. He's very jealous of my activities that don't put him at the center of the universe. As I was saying, things are happening out there that are bothering a lot of us. Friendships are being destroyed because of political conflicts and propaganda. Uh, Budget accounts are being destroyed in our personal lives and families because of the high prices of everything as a result of the tariffs and the Iranian war, the Jewish, well, the Israeli American Iranian war is happening in the Middle East, which was started basically on the personification of a great fabrication. They made the first, they started it 47 years ago as a bunch of hooey. That's like saying that the Civil War is still ongoing. I mean, the past is the past, the present is the present. Our leaders made that choice, and following under the guidance and influence of the Israeli Prime Minister, if that's what his position is. Moving away from that, again, how to remain unbothered is something that popped into my head this morning. I was watching a video on YouTube and that phrase came up. And really that's basically how I come up with the title and the concepts behind most of my videos. I'm up to 91 now, and that's my understanding. When I'm listening, sometimes a phrase or a word or whatever will hit me, and it'll hit my intellect, and my intellect will say, well, that's an interesting phrase, that's an interesting concept, that's an interesting idea, that's an interesting premise for a video. And then I'll sit down and I'll just write it on my Word program that's on my computer, and I'll do corrections to it, and a little research, also quite a bit of research to write it, and then I'll do corrections, and I'll format it, and then I'll come to you and when I have a moment, and I'll record it for y'all. And that's what I did. Today I wrote this one. It's part of a new book I'm putting together, not necessarily for publication, but for my own self-satisfaction. And the name of the book is going to be Yogi Essays, Yogi Essays, or Essays of a Yogi, or whatever. It's a working title. So let's get right to it, as I always try to do. I've given you about 3.5 minutes of introduction. So let's get right to it, and I'll let the narrator on my Word program in my computer read it for you, because my voice, because of my Parkinson's, is becoming weaker and weaker as time goes on. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can get it to read for you. I think I can. Yes, here we are.
How to remain unbothered in modern society.
Well, excuse an old man's inability to do things properly. Let's try it one more time. Let's do what they call in Hollywood, take two.
How to remain unbothered in modern society. James H. Exum / Sakshi. Austin, Texas. Copyrighted August 1st, 2026. All rights reserved. Remain unbothered because you have learned that every disturbance is not a command. Remain unbothered because the soul was not created to live as a notification. Sit within yourself. Breathe. Observe. Choose. And let the world continue being the world while you continue becoming free. Sakshi. This essay teaches how to maintain a calm mind in a loud world. To remain unbothered in modern society. society is not to become cold, careless, or detached from the world. It is to become rooted. It is to stand inside yourself with such quiet authority that every passing noise does not become your master. The world will speak. The world will shout. The world will perform. But you do not have to bow to every sound that reaches your ears. Modern society is designed to pull the mind outward. One screen calls you. One opinion provokes you. One headline shakes you. One comparison makes you forget the miracle of your own breath. If you are not awake, you will spend your life reacting to shadows, arguing with echoes, and giving your peace to people who did not earn access to your spirit. Begin with the breath. Before you answer the message, breathe. Before you defend your name, breathe. Before you decide that someone has disrespected you, breathe. Breath is the bridge between impulse and wisdom. When you return to the breath, you return to the throne of the self. The first practice, do not worship reaction. Reaction is the marketplace of the untrained mind. Someone says a thing, and immediately the body tightens. Someone posts a thing, and immediately the heart contracts. Someone ignores you, and immediately the imagination begins writing a tragedy. This is not freedom. This is slavery dressed as personality. Pause. Let the first wave pass. The first wave is usually pride. The second wave is usually fear. The third wave is where truth begins to appear. If you can wait for the third wave, you will save yourself from many foolish fires. The second practice, guard the gates. Your attention is sacred. Do not throw it into every digital street. Do not let every stranger's opinion walk through the temple of your mind with muddy shoes. What you watch, you water. What you repeat, you reinforce. What you entertain, you eventually become intimate with. To be unbothered, curate your inputs. Choose silence sometimes. Choose books sometimes. Choose walking without headphones. Choose conversation with people whose presence does not require you to shrink, perform, or defend your humanity. The third practice, know what is yours. Much of what disturbs you is never yours to carry. Another person's mood is not your assignment. Another person's misunderstanding is not always your emergency. Another person's projection does not become truth simply because it was spoken with confidence. Ask yourself, is this mine to correct, mine to hold, mine to heal, mine to answer? If not, bless it and release it. Let the wind carry what belongs to the wind. The fourth practice, move from center, not from noise. A centered person is not passive. A centered person can speak clearly, lead decisively, create boldly, and love deeply. But the movement comes from alignment, not agitation. There is a difference between action and reaction. Action is chosen. Reaction is triggered. Before you move, ask, am I acting from truth, or am I being dragged by irritation? Am I speaking to create understanding, or am I speaking to win a temporary little war? Do I want peace, or do I want the ego to be fed one more hot meal? The fifth practice, let simplicity become strength. The modern world celebrates complication. It tells you to be everywhere, know everything, answer everyone, own more, prove more, become more visible. But peace often hides in subtraction. Fewer arguments, fewer distractions, fewer false obligations, fewer performances for people who are not walking your path. Simplify your mornings. Simplify your commitments. Simplify your speech. Simplify your desires until the soul can breathe again. A life does not have to be loud to be powerful. Examples from Vedic and yogic writers. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna teaches Arjuna that true yoga is not escape from action, but steadiness within action. Established in yoga, Arjuna is told to perform his duty while abandoning attachment to success and failure. This is the ancient medicine for the modern nervous system. Do what is yours to do, but do not make your peace depend on applause, victory, or recognition. The Gita also gives the example of enduring the changing pairs of life: heat and cold, pleasure and pain, praise and blame. These experiences come and go like weather. The unbothered person does not pretend the weather is not there. They simply stop building their identity out of passing storms. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, yoga is described as the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. This does not mean forcing the mind into silence with violence. It means learning to witness the waves without drowning in them. A thought rises, a memory rises, a fear rises, a desire rises. The yogi watches, breathes, practices, and returns. Patanjali also gives two tools: abhyasa, steady practice, and vairagya, non-attachment. Practice is the daily returning. Non-attachment is the refusal to be owned by what appears. Together, they teach a person how to live in the world without being dragged by every emotion, trend, insult, pleasure, or fear. The Upanishadic sages point the seeker inward toward Atman, the deeper self that is not reduced to the body, role, reputation, or changing mood. When a person remembers the witnessing self, modern society loses some of its hypnotic power. You can still work, you can still love, you can still serve, but you no longer confuse the costume with the soul. So the Vedic and yogic writers do not teach numbness. They teach mastery. They do not ask you to abandon life. They ask you to abandon bondage. The point is not to become untouched because the heart is closed, but to become steady because the heart is rooted in something deeper than the world's noise. Contrary examples: the disturbed mind and the disciplined mind. The contrary example begins with Arjuna before instruction. On the battlefield, he is not unbothered. His body trembles, his mouth dries, his bow slips, and his mind is flooded with sorrow and confusion. This is not presented as shameful, it is presented as human. But it shows what happens when feeling becomes the driver and wisdom is pushed into the back of the chariot. The modern version is the person who receives one difficult message and immediately collapses into panic, resentment, imagination, and reaction. The yogic response is not to deny the trembling. It is to let the trembling become a doorway. Arjuna does not solve his crisis by running from the battlefield or pretending he feels nothing. He becomes teachable. He listens. He allows a higher intelligence to interrupt the storm. In modern terms, this is the person who pauses before replying, asks what is truly being triggered, and refuses to make a permanent decision from a temporary disturbance. A second contrary example appears in the Katha Upanishad's chariot teaching. When the senses are the horses and the mind is the reins, an undisciplined life is like a chariot pulled by wild horses. One horse runs toward pleasure, another runs toward praise, another runs toward anger, another runs toward fear. The passenger may believe he is choosing freely, but the chariot is being dragged by whatever stimulus is strongest. The disciplined example is different. The intellect becomes the charioteer, the mind becomes steady reins, and the senses become trained horses. The person still sees the world, touches the world, tastes the world, hears the world, and moves through the world. But the senses no longer dictate the destination. This is how one can own a phone without being owned by it, hear criticism without becoming it, and enjoy pleasure without worshiping it. Patanjali gives another contrary map through the kleshas, the afflictions that disturb the mind: ignorance, ego, attachment, aversion, and clinging fear. If someone insults you and the ego says, "I must destroy this person's opinion of me," that is asmita. If you crave constant approval and cannot rest without it, that is raga. If you avoid every discomfort and call it peace, that is dvesha. If you cling to control because uncertainty terrifies you, that is abhinavesha. The yogic alternative is to see the affliction as an object, not an identity. Instead of saying, I am angry, one may say, anger is passing through. Instead of saying, I am rejected, one may say, the desire for approval has been touched. This small shift returns power to the witness. The disturbance is still present, but it is no longer enthroned. So there are two paths before the modern seeker. One path says, react quickly, defend constantly, consume endlessly, compare daily, and call this being informed. The other path says, breathe first, observe carefully, choose consciously, and remember what is eternal before obeying what is immediate. One path makes the nervous system a public marketplace. The other makes the body a temple, the mind a clear instrument, and the soul a seated witness. The final practice, return again and again. You will be bothered sometimes. This is human. The practice is not to never feel the disturbance. The practice is to return faster. Return to breath. Return to truth. Return to the body. Return to the present moment. Return to the quiet witness inside you that has seen many storms and survived them all. Remain unbothered not because nothing matters, but because your peace is not for sale.
And there it is. That's my latest essay on this particular subject, how to remain unbothered in a modern society. I think it's applicable to our contemporaneous times. This one was a bit overwritten with Vedic terminology and Vedic words. And so what I decided to do, which I normally don't, is I decided to include a glossary in this particular essay. And I'm going to allow it to be read to you at this moment. And this will help you to fully understand what I was saying, and also introduce you to certain Sanskrit phrases that are used very often in the study of yoga. Being an old yogi and being a yoga writer, philosopher, so forth, this might be helpful to you. If not, then just totally ignore it.
Glossary. Bhagavad Gita, a central Hindu scripture contained within the Mahabharata, presenting Sri Krishna's teaching to Arjuna on duty, wisdom, devotion, disciplined action, and spiritual steadiness. Sri Krishna, the divine teacher of the Bhagavad Gita, who instructs Arjuna in yoga, dharma, devotion, wisdom, and freedom from attachment. Arjuna, the warrior seeker in the Bhagavad Gita, whose crisis of sorrow and confusion becomes the occasion for spiritual instruction. Yoga, a disciplined path of union, inner steadiness, self-mastery, and awakening. In this essay, it especially means remaining steady while acting in the world. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, a foundational yogic text that defines yoga as the stilling of the mind's fluctuations and presents the disciplined practices that lead toward liberation. Abhyasa, steady practice, the repeated returning to discipline, awareness, breath, and truth until steadiness becomes natural. Vairagya, non-attachment or dispassion, the refusal to be owned by passing emotions, desires, fears, praise, blame, or worldly outcomes. Upanishads, philosophical Vedic texts that direct the seeker inward toward the nature of the self, ultimate reality, and liberation. Atman, the deeper self or soul, the witnessing reality within a person that is not reducible to the body, role, mood, reputation, or temporary identity. Katha Upanishad, an Upanishadic text known, among other teachings, for the chariot image in which the senses, mind, intellect, and self are used to explain disciplined living. Kleshas, the afflictions or disturbances that cloud the mind and bind a person to suffering, including ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and clinging fear. Asmita, ego identification, the mistaken sense that the changing personality, pride, opinion, or social self is the true self. Raga, attachment or craving, the tendency of the mind to chase pleasure, approval, comfort, or possession as though these could secure lasting peace. Dvesha, aversion, the reactive movement of the mind away from discomfort, pain, criticism, or fear, often mistaken for true peace. Abhinavesha, clinging to life, control, and continuity, the deep fear-based attachment that resists uncertainty, loss, and change.
And there you have it. Hopefully there's little phrases and little sentences and little concepts and ideas within this, my latest video. I think it's number 92, I'm not quite sure of that. But hopefully there are little things within it, concepts within it, that will you can utilize, you can adopt and adapt your world towards that philosophy. I hope you can. Well, that basically wraps up this video. I try to keep them under 20 minutes. This one ran a little long. We're like at 22 minutes plus at this point. So I'll close it out by saying, as I always do, be good to yourself, be good to others, and be good to strangers. And remember, it's getting better day by day, and the lifespan of our current leaders is getting shorter day by day, as are all of our lives. And some people will find pleasure in that. I don't necessarily. I want anyone and everyone to live as long as they feel like it, feel like they're being useful. Unfortunately, this particular person that I just spoke of, our leader, has what was mentioned in that essay. He has what's termed a raga personality, R-A-G-A. You can look it up. There's four different things, four different ideas that deal, three other ideas that deal with the ideas about raga, R-A-G-A. Just look them up. There's four of them, and he fits it to a T, and that's the sadness of it all. And that is why I wrote, one of the reasons I wrote this. His raga desires and traits and personification is what has gotten us into this mess. And maybe with his passing, the problems and conflicts will pass with him. And again, hopefully he'll find the light, so to speak, the reality of why a man and woman and a human is supposed to be on this earth before he goes to his reward. And I'm not trying to predict his reward. I could care less one way or the other. It looks like it's going to go to 25 minutes on this. I'm sorry about the length of this, but there's a lot to cover. And maybe next time I won't include a glossary. Maybe next time. And maybe I will. So I've adopted these new videos to an opening, and I give you an opening, and I give you a closing. And that's how they're going to be, because my voice, even in this video, it started out strong, and now it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And I think it's best that narrator in the word program does it for us. And thank you so much. And again, be good to each other, folks. There's the old saying, this too shall pass. And this bothered world we live in right now shall pass. Good day and good